Rights are fundamental, of course, as in human rights, which we now extend to animals, animal rights. But of course, as Jeremy Bentham says, natural rights are nonsense on stilts. So these are rights that seem to exist in some other Platonic realm, conceded by, presumably by governments, by churches, authorities, and which at least will make us equal under the law. But it's a funny kind of concept. Historians might argue that it comes up via Roman law, through the Renaissance to the Enlightenment, via Christianity, towards the concept of the individual, towards modern day ideas of our individual freedom encoded in rights, probably around about the time of the French Revolution is the kind of ethos we're looking at. And since then, we've accepted them. Natural rights, that's what Jeremy didn't like, and he's right, of course. You can't write to an authority if you're on a desert island on your own and complain that you don't have enough food, or whatever it is, or that the weather is not being equitably distributed. So, they are human constructs, like money. Money only exists in its own Platonic realm, it's not a real thing. English banknotes, they actually say, I promise to pay the bearer on demand the sum of X number of pounds. So whatever that piece of paper is, it isn't £10. It's something you exchange for goods to the value of £10. And we construct an edifice on this, which works because we all believe in it. We believe in it so much, people try to forge banknotes. The comedian Robert Newman has a lovely analogy for that, where he says, imagine one day everybody decides that Salvador Dali wasn't actually very good, so suddenly all those Dalis in all those museums and private collections just not worth anything. The emperor's new clothes. So let's see what we get with this universal, equitable system of rights. We get legal aid. We get healthcare free at the point of use, at least in Great Britain. Well, I should say in other countries as well, but it's worked out a little bit differently via private insurances, etc., etc. But they don't leave you lying in the street. You, in theory, get fair treatment under the law. It's not dependent on your class, your wealth. So heck, it's a good thing. If you're a terrorist and of dual nationality and have committed a terrorist act and have served your prison sentence, but then the country you're in wants to deport you to your home country where you're still a citizen, but you have a family in the country where you committed the terrorist act, and you have a right to stay in that country because of that family. Currently, in Great Britain and Ireland, and possibly other places in the world, I have a right to go to the law if something offends me. Spanish law, I live in Spain, Spanish law guarantees me the right to a place to live. Isn't that fantastic? How does that actually flesh out in reality? Why are there so many people in Spain squatting properties and being chucked out of them if everybody has a right to somewhere to live? Why did I pay money for this place? Well, so I have the right to call it mine, don't I? That's one part of the deal. As if I think this is mine, of course. If they want to plough a motorway through this particular place of the earth where I have my house, suddenly I'll find out it isn't so much mine as I thought. But I will be fighting the case against them chucking me out through the system of laws and rights which we already have. So which way is this swinging? I mean, they sound really good, but they have a bad side as well. Do they really have a bad side? Do they? Chris Hedges, a very good thinker, knows a lot more about politics and economics than I do, very left-wing, has a programme where he goes to help prisoners to better their situation. He thinks a lot of them are unjustly imprisoned. He thinks the rehabilitation scheme is not good enough. And everybody has a right to an education. Of course, we don't really quibble when we deprive prisoners of their right to free assembly, their right to liberty, their right to decide when they have their meals every day. Those, of course, are necessarily taken away. And even if you're the most liberal person, Alright, the second most liberal person, you would agree, alright, an open prison, just keep dangerous people away from society. I don't care if they have snooker tables and all the internet they want. But they can't have the right to roam freely among people who obey the law. I mean, I'm thinking about dangerous psychopaths here as well. These are extreme cases, but we will deprive people of that right. Of course, in other countries, there's no right to life if you do certain things. USA, of course, being a spectacular outlier. When people argue about capital punishment and torture and freedom of expression and things like that, I just say, well, look at the countries that have capital punishment, torture, and don't have freedom of expression. Would you like to live there? So let's go back to Chris visiting the prisoners out of the goodness of his heart because they have the right to rehabilitation and education. Now, some of those people are in there because they've killed people. Seems to take away quite a hefty right to life. And you might say, well, what difference does that make? Mr. Hedges is still engaging his time fruitfully and in a good way. How much time would be devoted to, in the course of educating a prisoner, elucidating the rights of the other people which that person's just flatly denied? You do concede rights at times, don't you? Especially in these criminal cases. The McNaughton rule, which quite rightly said that sometimes people are not in possession of their own faculties, as it were. They have been mentally damaged. They cannot act in other way than what they acted. Peter Singer certainly believes that and extends it to everybody. And that's me and you. So that makes it a bit difficult to pin a crime on us, doesn't it? And then we're also getting into very knotty territories which are very far from legal arguments about free will versus determinism. Is this the only possible world? And suddenly Spinoza's leaping into the scene. But we're talking about rights, but haven't got anywhere. I'm just asking questions and trying to pick apart arguments. This is why they killed Socrates.